Okay, so I've owned this watch for around 4 months now. So I think that's long enough to give some more longer term ownership views. Do I still love it? Is it what I wanted it to be? Is it as good as I expected? Am I wearing it as much as I wanted? And so on and so forth. So this won't be a full on review. I will link to that in my description below. I've already done one of those and it's extensive. It goes on for 30 minutes or so. So if you really want the full details of the watch, please click on that. This is merely a has the watch lived up to my expectations over the 4 months of ownership. So again, I'll just look at the strap and the clasp, the case, the movement, and then some general closing thoughts. So this is the Zenith Big Date Flyback ceramic. It is a 42.5mm diameter, 51mm lug to lug, and 14.25mm thick, of which 2mm ish is the crystal thickness. So looking at the clasp, and I will use this other one to show as well, I do think the clasp is very good. Okay, I did see a review where they didn't understand why there's a gap between the sections here, and the only thing I can think of is when it's on your wrist, it allows this to rock, and therefore it conforms to the shape of your wrist more easily, thus making it more comfortable. So I don't quite get the issue with that gap, and I do think that's the reason for it. There you go. So I don't quite understand that comment, other than visually it might not just be to that person's taste. It is a PVD coated clasp. I was a bit worried that it would scratch and you would see the steel underneath. So far with both my clasps, that hasn't happened. I've mentioned before, I am careful with my watches, but I have worn this particular strap on a holiday to Venice, on the planes, through the airports and so on, and there's not a single mark on it. So that is kind of a testament to how robust it is. Also, I guess there's not much there to be exposed, is there? It's just that little kind of pin and buckle section to be exposed. So from a durability perspective, it has worn better than I thought it would. The only area you can see where it's kind of started to come off a bit is where the watch hooks in to the clasp itself. I don't know if I'll be able to get this on camera, but you can ever so see it slightly wearing away there, which I would expect because it's a contact point between the two areas, but it's not visible, so it's not a problem. One of the things that I still find strange, I think I mentioned it before, is that the way it's designed, the way you get so much sticking out of it. So I get having that makes perfect sense to me, but this bit just seems unnecessary to have that stick out, and I wonder if there's a way to design that better, just to make it look a bit sleeker. And again, similar here, when it's on your wrist, you can see these two little notches kind of sticking out a bit. So it's not a big issue, but it is something you notice when the watch is on your wrist and you're flipping it over, you can just, not that way, that way. You just see these extra bits that you're not used to necessarily seeing on a pin buckle system. I know it's a deployment clasp system, I get that, but I wonder if there is a way where they could design it to get rid of the bits that protrude from the side of the strap. That would be good if they could. It's super comfy. As you can see, having worn them, they both are kind of bent to the curvature of my wrists. It does take about, I said 2 or 3 days, probably about 2 or 3 days is probably about right. And then because of the soft inner rubber texture compared to the outer, which is obviously actually textured, the smooth inner rubber is very, very soft against your skin. It's super comfortable, really, really comfortable. So really like these straps, and I'm quite a sweaty dude, and I wore them in Venice and I got very hot, and I had no problems with comfort or anything like that at all. And often you'll see watches where the strap has got like grooves in it to help wick moisture. I'm not convinced that does much. It might get some air flowing, which might be beneficial, which this doesn't have. But I can't say I noticed it being an issue, although, no, I can't say I've noticed it being an issue. And I have worn ones with kind of grooves out the inside to help airflow, and I can't say I've noticed much of a benefit there either. Ultimately, because it's not super snug to your wrist, you still get airflow through anyway. So I don't know if that's more of a gimmicky thing or not, but Very, very comfortable straps in all weather conditions, especially around Venice when it was quite hot. I do swap out the straps a lot. It really does change the look of the watch. You can see there, hopefully in the light, you've kind of got the green one, which is actually my preference, and then the black one, which is a bit more stealthy. And it looks fantastic on both, and it's nice to have the option to change them. I'm just looking forward to Zenith bringing out some more colours, so I can put some different colours on the watch, because when you wear it on one strap for a couple of weeks, you put it on the other strap, and then actually you can wear it for another couple of weeks, and then change it again, and it's really nice to do. So maybe a dark grey or a light grey. I wouldn't wear white, but yeah, some other colour combinations would be nice. The only thing I have noticed on one of them, I can't remember which one it was now, there was a tiny bit of excess rubber at the end, and I did have to take a very sharp knife and just trim the excess rubber because it was kind of flapping up a bit. That was a bit annoying, but not enough to cause any problems. I've not had any defects with the straps. It hasn't peeled away from, because obviously it's laminated or laminated glued, whatever you want to call it, and then stitched. I've not had any kind of peeling away or any stitching coming out or anything like that, but there was a tiny bit of excess rubber that I just trimmed off the edge, and it's been good ever since. So yeah, both straps have been absolutely fine. So moving on to the case, we've already gone through the dimensions. I absolutely love this watch and the case. The fact that it's ceramic, it just doesn't show marks. As I said before, it doesn't even show fingerprints. If you put your finger on it, your thumb on it, it doesn't even show the prints. Because it's bead blasted, it's just absolutely fantastic. If you're quite anal about your watch staying clean, without scratches, it's just a fantastic material to have. Obviously, like I say, if it was polished ceramic, it would show the fingerprints and stuff like that, but it wouldn't show scratches still. And that's another thing. I've had this, and I say 4 months, and I've worn it quite a lot, virtually every single day, in fact. And I say into London, on trains, in and around London, in the office, on the flight, in and around Venice, and there's not one mark or scratch to be seen. I know you can hit it against other watches or other things, and you can get material. So if you hit this against steel, it won't scratch the ceramic, but you'll see the steel. And that's another thing. If you're very gentle, and I haven't had to do it yet, but apparently there's Inca razors that you can use. You can use toothpaste and toothbrushes. You can use a cloth and warm water, and it will get those scratches off. I have mentioned before, this watch is insured, so if you do drop it and you shatter the case, which seems extremely unlikely, but people seem to be very scared of it, the watch is insured, so that isn't something that concerns me. And yeah, because of all of this, it still looks brand new. The fact that you're pairing a rubber strap, which is textured, so on my Longines, it was a kind of a normal rubber strap, and you can see the marks and grazing on it quite easily. But because this is textured, it doesn't show the marks on the outside, and because it's a ceramic case, it doesn't show any marks there either. So yeah, I absolutely adore the materials used from an anal perspective of just keeping the watch looking as pristine as possible. So from the movement perspective, it's just an absolute beauty. It's, as I mentioned before, it's kind of an austere finish. It's not, you're not going to see loads of perlage and anglage and a huge amount of decoration. Oh, hang on a sec. Fingerprint on there. I'll just take off the strap. But for what it is on a pilot's watch, it's very in keeping with the style of this watch overall. There's just so much to like about it. It's just cool. The fact that you can have 304 odd pieces making this all function is just brilliant. It's fantastic to use the crown. When you pull it out, it just kind of pops. It's got a very nice sound to it. No, you probably couldn't hear it there either. But it's very nice to use. And it's one of those things that you can't really understand until you've actually held a watch and played with a watch. But using the pushers, as I showed on my other video, the tactility of all the touch points is just a really nice thing on this watch compared to my other watches. So the Omega Aquaterra I've got is quite tough to use. It's fine, but it's a bit hard to wind. The crown kind of digs into your skin a bit. When you wind the IWC, it's quite clicky. This is all very smooth. It all just feels solid and unbelievably well made. The innovations that go into the movement are the thing that really drew me to this watch, as well as lots of the other items. But the big date complication, watching it tick over, using it yourself, pressing the pushes for the chronograph. You don't use the chronograph much, right? If at all, you don't have to. But just to have it there aesthetically and know how much effort's gone into that Flyback chronograph is just a really cool thing for me to geek out on and enjoy. And sometimes just sit there in the evening and just play around with it. It's just a cool thing. It's still running at -2 seconds a day after all of the time I've had it and all the amount of wear I've used on it. So that's kind of where it's settled. As I've mentioned before, that's within lots of different certifications, COSC, Rolex Superlative, etc. But I'd be lying if I said I wouldn't prefer it to run faster. It's disappointing that it doesn't run fast and it runs slow. Let's just put it on quickly so you can actually see it on my wrist. So I've got a 7-inch wrist exactly. And as you can see, there's space at the top of my wrist, space at the bottom of my wrist, and it's not that thick. The only thing I still wish they hadn't done is I still wish that glass was flat, the crystal was flat. If that crystal was a millimetre, the watch should be 13.2 millimetres thick, which would just be better. But as you can see, it doesn't wear like a 14.2 millimetre watch or whatever, because it's the crystal that takes up that, and the crystal is obviously clear. So what you're seeing is the side of the case, and the side of the case isn't very thick, especially when you compare it to cases like I've had before, like on my Tudor GMT. So you can see the case is broken up. You've got the lower section, you've got the mid case, which is quite thin, the actual bezel, and then the crystal. So proportionally, it looks very good on the wrist. Oh yeah, right, this is one thing. So the sweep of the second hand is so smooth, and I get that, right? It's 36 hertz as opposed to 28 hertz, 28,000. So 36,000 as opposed to 28,000. But when you watch that and then you go back to your other watches, you really do notice the smoothness of this. And I guess that would be the equivalent to going to one of the Grand Seiko spring drive movements, because that is 100% smooth because of the way it's designed. So you move away from this watch to one of your other watches and you can literally see the ticking, which is fine. It's not a problem. It doesn't bother me. But the fact that you then come back to this and it's just such a smooth sweep of the second hand isn't something I thought about, isn't something I thought I would notice, but it is something I've noticed and it is something I appreciate. And again, it just shows you what's gone into the movement and manufacturing of this watch. It's just so smooth, you just can't see it ticking. And yeah, you don't notice it until you put the other watches on, but something odd that I have noticed and I thought I would just bring to light. So yeah, overall, what are my kind of finishing thoughts on the watch? Well, it's actually been a bit of a watch killer for me, which is a bit odd. This was supposed to be an addition to my watches, not replacements, not resulting in me selling other watches. And then I build on here from 4 nice watches up to 6, and then play around with the 4 that I've got, which aren't keepers, and then this and my Omega Aquaterra are the keepers. But in the 4 months I've had it, I've worn it pretty much every single day. And I genuinely expected that to wear off and for me to go back to my other watches, but it simply hasn't. And changing the strap changes the look of the watch, so it makes me wear it even more. So as a result, my IWC Mark 18 Le Petit Prince is up for sale, and I'm even considering selling my Tudor Pelagos at 39, because then it leaves me with this, my Omega Aquaterra Seamaster Golf Edition, and my G-Shock. This is my daily watch. I can wear my Omega for dailies if I want as well, but I can also wear it for smarter occasions. So I went for a wedding to a wedding at the weekend and I wore it for that. But because of the lightness, because of the robustness, the scratch resistance, the accuracy, the look of this, the comfort of this is what I'm choosing to wear every day. So in all likelihood, when I do my state of the collection at the end of the year, I might just have 3 watches. Now, does that mean I won't buy more watches? No, it doesn't. I still want to own a Glasuto Original, either a CQ or a Panamatic Luna. I still want to get a Rolex Explorer 2, the 40mm model. I still want to own a Grand Seiko at some point. There are lots more watches I want to experiment with. But for now, this has kind of ruined me a little bit and taken my watch collection journey in a direction I did not expect. So that was interesting and did not see that coming. As I've talked about, overall, I just love this watch. The look of it, the style of it, the weight of it, the aesthetic of it, everything about it is brilliant. And one of the other fantastic factors about this is because of the make of it, so it's a Zenith, not many people know about them. Because of the style of it, it's not blingy, it's not shiny. I can wear this everywhere. I wear it to London. I don't worry about it. I don't worry about people trying to rob me for it. It is the most expensive watch I've bought, and I can enjoy it so much more than wearing something like my Tudor, because I'd be a little bit nervous wearing my Tudor into London, even my Omega, because it's quite blingy, quite shiny in certain areas in London. But this, I can wear all the time, anywhere in the world. No one really knows what it is. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. So I feel completely comfortable wearing it, and then as a result, I enjoy it even more. I get so much more satisfaction out of it because of that fact. What else do we need to talk about? I think that's it. So I don't know where my collection's going to go in the future. I might end up with 3 watches at the end of this year. I'll certainly be buying more watches. It's just a matter of when and not if. If you're on the fence about this, I understand it's an expensive watch. It will come down as they become availability becomes better, but it is an absolute belter. And if you're not sure about it, just go and try it on. With it being all black, it really doesn't wear like the dimensions suggest. It wears better than the steel. I did try on the steel as well. Man, it is just such a well-made watch, and when you pick up your other watches and handle them, you can really feel the quality that's gone into this. It's kind of difficult to convey through a video, but yeah, it's an absolute belter. As always, I hope this has been helpful if you're on the fence or looking at one of these. If you have any questions, please let me know.